everyone, I'm Ann Greeny, Sierra's CMO, and I just wanted to welcome you all to our early stage marketing panel. This is a subject I'm super passionate about as I spent over a decade leading early stage teams. And today we brought together an all-star panel to join me and demystify going to market in the early stage. So with me, I've got Joe Andrews, CMO of Support Logic. Previously, he was a marketing leader at OODA Health, InsideView, Zora, and VMware. Jake Braley is the CMO at Crisp. Previously, he was marketing leader at Highspot, Apptio, K2, and Microsoft. And Ron Harnik is the VP of Marketing at Endor Labs, previously marketing leader at Tastewise, Palo Alto Networks, and NetApp. So thank you guys all for joining today. And to start, I want to go around and, as marketers, I want to give you the chance to talk a little bit about what the companies that you are marketing for today. So if you could each kind of tell me a little bit, super brief about kind of the biggest value prop of your current company, that would be great. Jake, I'll start with you.
Sure. I can see two of us at least are all branded today, so that's part of the promotional piece here. But yeah, I've been at Crisp for a little under a year, and Crisp has pioneered with AI technology to make digital voice communication more productive, more effective for today's digital workforce.
Awesome. Ron, how about yourself?
Yeah, also I've been with Endor Labs for just over the year, moved halfway across the world to take this job. So I believe in what we do. And our goal is really to help development and security teams to achieve application security without imposing a huge productivity tax on development teams.
And Joe?
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I don't have my t-shirt, but we have the branding on the wall right behind me. So I've been here almost 3 years, hard to believe. Support Logic at its core helps support organizations, customer support organizations, to improve the quality of service and support, as well as the efficiency of the support, the cost and the quality for both customers, as well as the employees, frontline agents, as well as managers. And we do that using a number of technologies in AI. It's funny because 3 years ago when I started, that was such a big focus, right? What we were doing with AI. Now it's really table stakes. Now it's about the benefits and the end results that you provide.
Great. Yeah. And three great companies that Sierra is proud to support. So the next thing I want to do is talk a little bit about each of your backgrounds and expertise. And to do this, what we're going to do is basically just rank the following 3 pillars of marketing from your strongest skill set to your weakest. So the 3 pillars being demand gen / performance marketing, product marketing, and brand / corporate. Sometimes you put comms in there as well. So Joe, I'll start with you.
Great. Yeah. I mean, this is always hard to rank, right? Because as a marketing leader, we're sort of taught or, teaching ourselves to do it all. But, you have to be self-aware. And I definitely lead with the product marketing. That's where I've spent the bulk of my career on the marketing side. And then followed by demand gen / performance marketing, and then finally brand and corporate comms.
Ron?
Yeah, so very, very similar. I came up through product marketing, and I think that there is you're seeing a wave of CMOs and VPs of marketing that are coming from the product marketing world, as opposed to I think the previous wave, which was more from comms and demand gen. And I think that we're reflecting that here. I do think that some of these definitions really depend on the company. So for example, I would put brand closer to product marketing and demand gen than I would to what traditionally is known as corporate comms. And the areas that I like to lead with are as well product marketing, brand and demand gen, and corporate comms is something that I always bring someone on to help me with because I am bad at it.
And Jake, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think we're three for three here on the profile, but yeah, I cut my teeth in product marketing coming up through tech, go to market. and have kind of been building out the rest of the functional skill set around that. Similar to what Ron said, I think product marketing is maybe out of the three, the most ambiguous in terms of how it's defined and what that role means, as I've grown up through various iterations of what's called product marketing. And in some ways, the name I even feel is a misnomer. I think of it more as like revenue marketing. And so I'm sure we'll get into more discussion around that. But yeah, I'm definitely first on the list, product marketer. Definitely demand gen performance is next in line, and brand and corp comms would be after that.
Yeah, and this is definitely not a coincidence. I think what I wanted to show, especially because I know that we have so many early stage founders on the call today, is this is really what I think of the secret sauce in hiring great early stage marketers, especially for B2B, is having, and first being able to understand where the superpowers are and where the power alleys are. But then also what really is important in that early stage. So yeah, let's jump first into product marketing. And just to give an overview for everyone of really what product marketing is. So a product marketing leader, their job is really to tell the product story. And, to Jake's point, that also connects to revenue. The product marketer, you can think of them as the mastermind behind making your product really shine and stand out in a crowded market. They figure out who your ideal customer is, what they want, and then they help you tweak and polish the product to ensure that it hits the right customer and what the prospect's needs are. So things they do: market research, messaging, positioning, go-to-market strategy, and sales enablement. So it's all really interconnected. And so Jake, I'll start with you. Why is product marketing so critical to an early stage startup?
Yeah, well, so again, I think I'll just define the kind of product marketing that I grew up in, which was my first job in product marketing was managing Windows desktop business for Microsoft, which was a $1.5 billion business in terms of the product line. And so very quantitative in focus, but the accountability was really oriented around generating that revenue for the product line. And so when I kind of mentioned revenue marketing as a way I think about pure product marketing, it really starts with the foundation of the product, the ownership of the product in terms of generating the returns to the business that it needs to. And that's what the product marketing's core accountability is. And then to do that, there's a lot of variety of functional skills that product marketers use to do that. But I think sometimes product marketing is more defined narrowly as sales, content production, product positioning and messaging, and some of the more tactical aspects of product marketing. But what I would call a full funnel pure product marketer really thinks about that as only part of the tactical skill set that's needed to do product marketing. And there's a lot of foundational things that relate to revenue and go-to-market that product marketers should really also be accountable to, defining the ICP, defining the core buyer personas, pricing and packaging. It's really a broad-based generalist skill set. And so I think from that standpoint, I'm obviously biased, but I think for this stage organization, it lends itself very well to some of the blocking and tackling that has to be done to move from product market fit to go-to-market fit, and ultimately into a repeatable scale stage of a venture-backed startup.
And Joe, who is the product marketing leader or product marketer working with primarily at the startup? Like, where are they spending the most of their time?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think I grew up in product marketing at VMware, which went from, during my tenure, 800 employees to 15,000 or so in 6 years. And it really was aligned with Jake's definition, right? And other terms that I prefer to product marketing are portfolio marketing, solutions marketing, because I think the risk of the perception of what product marketing can bring is that it gets relegated to the tactical aspects of the product, the messaging, managing the launch, which is a tactical execution function, very important. but I think that limits what the potential for product marketing can do. And I think the answer to your question around who do they engage with most at an early stage startup, it's really everyone, but there's risk in that, being spread too thin. I always tell, product marketing, guide them to spend the most time with customers, right? Really be the biggest value that product marketing can bring to the organization is to have that pure confidence to represent the voice of the customer. That can both drive the GTM. It can also drive product innovation, which is so critical at an early stage company. And then, beyond that, it's the actual product team, people who are building and delivering the product, and then the revenue side of the house, right? SDRs, sellers, really being one with them and aligned in how they sell, and learning and continuing to iterate and then train and enable them.
And so, Ron, from your perspective, what's some of the common mistakes that product marketers make?
I think that even before you get to the mistakes that product marketers could make, I think that very often it ends up being the wrong person in the seat, right? So from the perspective of early stage founders, when they think about product marketing and when they're hiring their first marketing leaders, they have to also think, how does the skill set of this person align with the type of go-to-market that I have? So, for example, most of my experience, and I think this is also true for all of us here on this call, I've been mostly working on B2B enterprise sales, selling high-ticket cybersecurity software, which is a very specific type of motion where you go through a demo, you go through a POV, you go through this whole process, and it takes you, however many months it takes you. There are other products out there that could be in the same category or a different category that could be much more of a self-service motion, right? That could be someone goes on the website, they're expected to do a trial, put down a credit card. This makes a huge difference of the type of person that you need. If I'm hiring a product marketer right now for my marketing team at Endor Labs, which we're in the cybersecurity space, enterprise sales, sales-driven kind of general motion, I need someone first that is going to be technical enough to really understand and represent the customer. I am going to need someone who has the soft skills to take complex ideas and translate them into simple stories that people can understand, and to do so in a way that creates the urgency of we need to get this product now, and not making it seem like a nice to have. And I do need a relationship builder, right? The person that's going to work with customer success and product and do all the tactical stuff that we mentioned earlier as well. If I'm working on more of kind of product-led growth type of path, which is a whole different conversation, I might want someone who is better at tweaking a funnel and analyzing a funnel to say, okay, I have a lot of leads coming in, but not enough of them are converting to this stage 2. And now I need to run this promotion only to this segment. Things that are traditionally associated with demand gen people. And I might be more comfortable with having that person less of a subject matter expert and relying more on other people in the company, because their job is to market the product, right? Their job is to take this product to market. And the way you do that in different go-to-markets, different motions, is so different, which is why this is one of the hardest roles in go-to-market to hire for, and also why I think it's one of the most valuable ones, right? If I were a marketer in the beginning of my path, I would still double down on product marketing right now, because people who are very good in this discipline, in the specific go-to-market that they've specialized in, are so unbelievably valuable. And as far as the mistakes that the product marketer themselves can make, I think there are I can tell you about many mistakes that I have made and am probably still making, and that will be a very, very long conversation. But I think that the most foundational one is taking a job that your skill set doesn't align with. Because you've done product marketing at company A doesn't mean you can do it at company B, because they had completely different go-to-markets. And if you do want to take that job, you need to spend the time aligning your skill set with how they sell the product. It's not enough to say, oh, both of these companies are cybersecurity. Great. I can do it.
So I want to kind of double down on that. One of the things that I see a lot is, a founder will hire someone to come in and be the marketing leader, and they might have great product marketing experience, but they lack startup experience. And you guys all have both big tech experience and early stage startup experience. And so, especially just focused on product marketing, what do product marketing leaders that come in that lack that early stage experience, what do they struggle with the most? And Jake, I'll start with you.
Well, I think by the way, I totally agree with that. I've seen that quite a bit. It's a hard role to hire for, and you got to beware of a product marketer that only has that background. I also at one point only had that background, and so I had a lot of founders saying, "Hey, why should I hire you? You're a big tech guy." A little bit of background for me personally is that I've always been very passionate about early stage venture business creation. I went back to business school for it, so I never thought I'd be at Microsoft for as long as I was. And I really had that passion for the creation process of business. So I think the pitfalls of potentially hiring somebody from that more corporate background of product marketing is that it gets defined more narrowly, it gets defined differently, and that there tends to be reliance on more structure and definition than comfort with ambiguity and the ability to just be scrappy. A lot of this stuff hasn't been invented yet in terms of the go-to-market. I'm not talking about the product market fit and the go-to-market fit. I'm just saying, product marketing is an applied function. As Ron said, you have to take all of the variables into account and then determine from those variables, product dynamic, the buyer dynamics, the competitive dynamics, the market landscape. Those will never be the same for any company, even within the similar industries or adjacencies. And so the skill set that you really acquire in pure product marketing is the ability to apply that strategic go-to-market knowledge to all of those variables. And by the way, all those variables are changing. And so I always talk to my product marketers and say, first of all, how do you define product marketing? And are you sure that, especially for earlier stage, are you sure this is a career you want? Because it's not for everybody. It is challenging. It has the highest difficulty curve. I think from my standpoint, the most potentially rewarding, but it takes a unique individual with the kind of combination of skill set for early stage, the grit, the intuition, the ingenuity, because product marketers who come from big and try to go small are often looking for, hey, show me all the data. And
there's no data.
You can't be data driven in earlier stage. You have to be data informed. And so that's an example of some of the reliance I think, unfortunately, you build just getting product marketing experience in larger tech. So that's kind of things I look for.
No, I think that's great. Joe, what piece of advice would you give a founder? And I think Jake made a great point. All of us actually started big corporate or had some big corporate experience before we went to early stage. What piece of advice would you give a founder who wants to make that hire out of big tech and they're bringing someone into their early stage startup? What do they need to do, or how can they help this individual and make sure this individual is the right hire?
Yeah, I think there's a litmus test for agility. Our CEO and founder, Krishna, and I talk about this all the time for really any hire coming to a startup from a big company. This is something that needs to be proven trial by fire, to Jake's point. I made my own mistakes going from large software company to startup as the product marketing leader. And as Jake said, I brought a lot of my process orientation around, I don't know if everyone took pragmatic marketing back in the day. That was sort of the Bible for product marketing. And you have a lot of processes there. You're going to go figure out your buyer personas. That's research intensive process. You're going to go do win-loss analysis, right? And you sort of do all of this to inform your decisions. You don't have that time luxury in a startup, and you really need to, like what Jake said, informed decision-making, guided, right, decision-making. But you have to make bets, and you have to move quickly. And so that speed is critical. And that operating in that environment of ambiguity is something that is uncomfortable for many people, including myself, who made that transition. Now it's second nature for me, but it took time to adjust to that. And so the guidance and advice I would have for the founders who are looking to hire in that role is to talk through it, be brutally transparent. And this is the environment we're in. We need to make decisions. Talking about how decisions are made is an important part of the interview process. Do you use a DAISY-like approach, or is it just, right, the founder wants recommendations and makes final decisions on everything? What level of comfort do they have in delegating decisions? Most of the early stage founders I've worked with want you to sort of earn your trust badge first, and then they'll delegate some of those decisions. But being very transparent in this conversation from the interview process, and then when you join at the onset in early stage is so critical.
And Ron, taking it over to you, when as a marketing leader around product marketing, when you join a company, especially an early stage startup, what is the first thing that you do? How do you think about those first 30 days?
Yeah, it really depends on the stage of the company. I tend to join when the company is very, very, very small, because that is the environment that I feel like I do well in. And it also very much depends on who the founder is, because the type of marketer that you get to be your first go-to-market executive or leader is going to differ a lot depending on the type of founder. If this is a first-time, deeply technical founder, and if there's any of you out there listening, I love you, but sometimes you don't know a whole lot about marketing, and we need to be honest about it. So it's just like Joe said, first, I align with the founder who's going to be my boss, because at the end of the day, even if I bring to the table more marketing experience, I'm going to recognize the fact that the CEO, the founder, is going to be my boss, and I am going to align with their vision and how they want to do things. One of the benefits of working with a founder like right now at Andor Labs, who has done this, 2-3 times, and it's not their first company, is that decision making is very, very fast, right? Because it's just, we are comfortable making, just like Jake said, data informed decisions. We can make them fast. We can get to, okay, we're reasonably certain that this thing is a good bet. Let's put it into our strategy. Let's put it into our project. Let's set some goals around it, and let's just start executing and not get stuck in, paralysis by analysis. So very often when founders will go to hire their first, not just marketer, but their first go-to-market executive, there's a misalignment on their expectations. Do they need maybe just a marketing manager, someone who wants a shot at, a bigger role, who will run campaigns for them, who will set up, LinkedIn, who will do all this hands-on stuff, which as a marketing leader at a startup, you should be able to do anyway. Or are they looking for someone who can be a bit more strategic, who can be a bit more higher level, set up processes, which is obviously going to take longer, but is going to have longer term impact. So first thing I do is just make sure me and my boss are aligned on what are we actually expecting. If this is a company like Andor Labs that I joined when we were in stealth and we were just launching the company, the first thing is to come up with a story, a messaging, sort of messaging central document that everybody is bought into, including the people who are hard sells. The CTO, the architects, the kind of hardcore engineers. Can I get them excited? Can I market to this internally to them? Do they get fired up on the internal meetings? And I talk to customers, and I talk to, our network. Usually at this point, you don't have any customers, but you talk to your potential customers, and you build a story that you feel like, okay, this has some teeth. We can start building something with this. And then based on that, We make a very, very simple strategy. I try to have this process take no more than a couple of weeks. Maybe you can't really afford to spend 6 months, a year just planning while you're in this stage, and you start executing. And this is where, if you can't make decisions quickly and you can't hire the right people quickly, or at the very least outsource the things that you need, it's going to slow you down and you're going to be dead in the water. Especially if you're very, very lean, which you usually are at an early stage startup. I prefer to kind of hit the ground running at these stages, and then, which is sort of where we are now with Endro Labs. Once you've gained some market share, you have some customers, you're doing okay, then you can kind of take a breath and say, okay, let's do some very diligent planning for the year ahead. Now that we have resources, now that we also validated what's working and what's not working. What I will say, and a mistake that I have made multiple times now, for marketing leaders who are taking these jobs, make sure you do something that shows some significant movement in impact within your first 90 days. Don't let your first 90 days go by with what have you actually done? Like, oh, I was learning, I was talking to everybody, I was setting up my strategy. All of that is very important, but you also have to market your function to get resources internally in the company. Make sure you do either something big or something that moves the needle in terms of pipeline creation. Recognize the user experience, recognize, I hate to use these very corporate terms, but recognize the low-hanging fruit and pick those fruit and do something that matters in your first, I would say, probably even 60 days.
Yeah, and I think that those marketers that come from big tech or bigger companies sometimes struggle with that because they're just not used to being able to come in, make an impact. They're used to kind of the red tape and having to go through the bureaucracy to get anything done. But that to a lot of us is the fun part about being at the early stage, is you can go in and you can make an impact almost immediately. And Ron, I think your point is spot on. If you can go in and do that, you all of a sudden build trust, because, you know, as much as we love to say everyone loves the marketer, if that isn't always the case, and we're the ones that often spend money. And so in order to get that budget, in order to get that trust, going in and making an impact early is really important. So with that, I want to jump over to what was everyone's kind of second bucket in the skill set, which is performance marketing, or often known as demand generation. Performance marketing in the old days had a lot to do with advertising and advertising optimization, but today I think it encompasses so much more. And the main piece here that I always like to stress is revenue is the CMO's job, period. You know, clearly it's the CROs and the VP of sales job as well, but the CMO, the head of marketing, needs to take ownership of revenue alongside those sales leaders. And performance marketing, you know, they're really in charge of driving these measurable, tangible results through various digital marketing channels. So you've got to own pipeline, website conversion, SEO, and automation. So I want to start there because this is obviously a channel I'm really passionate about. And unfortunately, it's one that I see a lot of founders hire early stage marketing leaders that lack any demand gen experience. And it turns into an issue because it's a hard thing to just hire out on its own. So Jake, I'll start with you. What does a startup need to do before they build that demand gen strategy?
Yeah, what do they need to do before? So when you're going to pour dollars into driving demand, you got to know who you're targeting. So this goes back to kind of the foundational elements of product marketing and why I personally believe product marketing is the skill set. I know you'll hear about a T-shaped skill set in CMO world, like which do you go deep in and what are the broad functions. I think of product marketing maybe as more of like a E-shape tilted on the side, right? It's kind of the foundational piece, but when it's really defined in the broad in the broad definition of product marketing, being a business owner and managing the business, it's a very quantitative skill set that's applied to every function that touches the customer throughout the life cycle. And so demand gen and growth marketing and what you're calling performance marketing from my background has been just one very important aspect of product marketing. When you're looking end to end at how you have to go monetize a product line, the demand gen growth performance is a core piece of it. And the applied skill set of the quantitative aspects that I think is one of the most important foundational pieces to performance and demand gen marketing. There's of course a lot of additional functional knowledge that that type of person needs to have in terms of understanding channel mix, channel management, new emerging techs, performance, all of those things related to digital demand especially. But I think the first thing that you have to do is understand, again, like those foundational elements of I'll call it the go-to-market. Who's our core personas? Where do we think we're going to get the biggest bang in return on our demand gen dollars in terms of ICP, ideal customer profile, in terms of personas that you're defining? And that definition, by the way, has to have buy-in and be aligned across the entire go-to-market. So the sales team needs to have that view. Your success teams need to have that view. And ultimately, that's got to fit with your product and engineering team in terms of the product they envision, which hopefully includes the idea of not just user personas, but also buyer personas and that collaboration with product marketing. So first thing for demand gen is really those core foundational pieces. Again, I think product marketing is uniquely designed to come in and help orchestrate.
I think it's a great point, and one that I was alluding to is oftentimes you'll see a CEO or a founder that's ready, like, okay, we need to start building pipeline and demand, but they haven't done all the foundational work. And so that's where product marketing really needs to come in, build that foundational work so that so you're not wasting money at the end of the day. And so, Joe, from your perspective, what is something that you wish a CEO or founder knew about demand gen? What is something from a CMO's perspective that you wish the CEO, not necessarily your CEO today, but just in general, that CEOs knew about demand gen marketing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really that it is a process and an iterative one at that. As Jake said, you really need to start with the foundation. And depending on where the stage that the company is in, right? Ron started when it was pre-launch. I came in when there were literally, 2 AEs, half of an SDR, 0 structured marketing campaigns. The company did a couple of events. So I had a tiny bit of a foundation to go on, but my plan was to kind of understand what was working and not, build a little bit of quick intelligence around the personas, and the channels. The channels are just as important, right? What are those watering holes that you want to go attract and engage with those right buyer personas on, and then put that into process and then learn and quickly iterate. And so back to the point of what do the founders need to know, it's a process that they need to be invested in and aligned with. And it's not just a singular event meaning a campaign. Like, I'm going to go do this thing. It's going to produce a bunch of pipeline and it's going to be great, right? Depending on a sales cycle. And, my career has largely been in enterprise B2B GTM motions, right? Those sales cycles are, sometimes 6 months or more. And so it takes a long time. You have to go out and do some things, and you need to learn and quickly iterate. But at the end of the day, that is a process.
I want to talk a little bit about that relationship, especially with demand gen and sales. We talked a little bit about product marketing, how they need to be working with sales for both enablement. They need to be working with product and the founders. So on the demand gen side, you have to be tied at the hip with sales. And when we talk about, like, to your point, building that pipeline and agreeing upon together, one of the misconceptions I always saw that founders thought marketers could abracadabra, you give them a number, they're going to hit it. But it is an iterative process. There's no click of a button, then you're all of a sudden going to get quality users in, especially at the early stage where you're still learning who your market is. So Rana, I'll kind of pass it to you. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? I would say actually not just with sales, but sales, CS, and marketing and how they work together at the early stage.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a really great interview with Dave Kellogg that I think everybody should listen to. It was on the Exit 5 podcast by Dave Gerhardt, where he talked with Dave Kellogg, who is amazing if you've read his blog, where one of the things that he talks about is how it's more important for the marketing leader to be aligned with the sales leader than it is for the marketing leader to be aligned with the CEO. So it is more important for you as the marketing leader and whoever is your counterpart in sales to agree on the number that you're trying to get to than it is the same with the CEO. And that is because the founder, the CEO, is often going to have a very different conception of what marketing is and what they expect out of it. If you've done your job and you've aligned on that, like we said previously, then maybe you've alleviated that pain. But let's say that you haven't. The most foundational thing to make sure that the relationship works is to make sure that everybody understands what the KPI is. What is the number that we're going after? For example, if marketing is measured on the amount of leads that they generate, but sales is measured on the amount of revenue they generate, that's going to incentivize very different activities. And marketing is going to be running ebooks, and they're going to be bringing, I don't know, a magician to their booth at a big trade show, and they're going to get lots of leads, and they're going to call them MQLs, and I'm going to throw them at sales, and then sales are going to say, these people don't want to buy. And that's how you have a bad time, right? You're going to have a bad relationship between those teams. This is, for example, for me, why a hill I will die on is that the SDR team belongs in marketing, because that is a pipeline creation function. And of course, the caveat is the SDR team should live with the leader who loves them and cares for them and knows how to manage that team. But ideally, I want that team to be sitting under marketing, because I want them to be qualifying and creating opportunities, and I want to be measured on qualified pipeline and revenue. Of course, I track leads, and of course, I track email open rates, and every single thing you can track, I track, right? We're marketers, we love our dashboards, we love tracking. But the things that I report up to my CEO and the things that I align on pipeline calls and all of those internal meetings that we have, those need to be meaningful metrics, like how much pipeline we created, maybe conversion rates from one step below that. And once you have that alignment, and your AEs who need to trust you, and the VP of sales and the VP of customer success all know that ideally we're all being measured on the same number, that is the foundational aspect for a good relationship, in my case. Obviously, there's many more steps beyond that are more personal and process driven. So how do your product launches look like? Do you involve product marketing early with product in the process? How do you roll out those things to your sales team on the product marketing side? On the demand generation side, which is a whole different topic, how do you scope out each campaign, and how do you communicate that back to the sales team? How do you involve them in it? Do you involve them in picking out the accounts that you use for ABM campaigns? There are a lot of things that are process driven that I'm sure each one of these topics can be an hour-long topic, but none of these things, in my perspective, work if sales and marketing are not measured on either the same number or very similar numbers. So for example, I'm measured on the amount of qualified pipeline that we contribute and we create, and sales is measured on the revenue that they generate, regardless of source. And same goes with my counterpart in partnerships and alliances.
So Joe, I want to pass it to you because you're a little bit later stage now. I know you've been at SupportLogic for almost 3 years, I believe, and but the company itself is a little bit later. So when you think about when it comes around for your planning for your quarter, how do you work with both the sales leader and the CS leader to kind of think through what is that revenue number? Because Ron, I completely agree that marketing needs to own lower in the funnel And also that alignment between the three is super important, even probably more important than the what the CEO believes, because you're on the battlefield actually, selling the product. So Joe, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so first, the comment on the last question around the KPIs. I agree with Ron 100% around aligning sales and marketing on pipeline, right, which drives revenue. Pipeline being defined by sales accepted opportunities. That could be measured by value or by individual opportunity count. For example, if you're in a usage-based model, which is what SupportLogic is currently doing, it's more, we have a land and expand model today. It's more important to align on the number of opportunities than necessarily the value. Traditional enterprise companies, because you may have some very large deals, can inflate the value. And so that opportunity count number is more important. But leads are, crap, excuse my French. This is one of my soapbox topics is I wish the lead object would just die. It's meaningless. We're focused very much on ABM, and ABM is about account and engagement. People are important, people within the accounts. And so that's how sales and marketing best aligns, is around who are the right accounts, how are we engaging with them. It's a unified playbook to go after that. To get back to your question around now you're bringing in customer success. For the last decade plus, right, being in mostly subscription-oriented businesses, the front end of that land experience is just one piece of it. We like to think of it as an end-to-end customer journey and lifecycle. And for any subscription business, the dollar that you have from an existing customer to protect and to expand upon is an easier lever for the business to pull than finding a new dollar from a new customer. And so we actually think about this at SupportLogic, and holistically, companies at our stage and later, I believe, should be focused first on protect that base, expand the base, and then go after net new. And the challenge for those of us in this seat and our teams is that we get a lot of asks from the teams that are going after the net new, because it's, typical sales behavior is to be, very ask oriented. They're not afraid to ask for things. The risk is that your attention can get, drowned out and focus too much in that area. So some of the tips to get through this are align with your customer success leader. We recently at SupportLogic made the switch to have CSMs actually own renewal and expansion, which is, I think pretty rare. It's happening more and more, I'm seeing, but the account executives own just the new logo acquisition. And so now marketing is really accountable for that full life cycle and partnering with both customer success and the new business side of the sales organization. So alignment is key. Understanding the metrics for the business and what is really going to, drive the company goals. And then marketing, taking, starting with myself and my team, taking accountability for how are we going to hit those results? What are the things we're doing? And being very explicit about what we're not doing. We need to actually take away time and focus on new logo in some cases, because we're focusing on this renewal and expansion effort. And so those are the conversations that need to happen continuously in a very transparent way.
Yeah, I think the old school way of thinking about this was it's natural for sales and marketing to have a ton of tension. And I think today people are realizing if, as a founder, if sales and marketing are banging heads, you really got to figure out what the problem is. And the problem can often be in how they're tracking their goals. And you got to solve that, because you are not going to have an efficient growth model if you can't solve and make sure that everyone's working together and has a common goal. So Jake, I want to throw to you because Crisp is a little unique in the sense that you are both, you have a freemium product, so there's some product-led growth elements there, and then you also have a really thriving enterprise product. And to all the listeners out here, I'm currently using Crisp. Everyone should use it. It's like been a game changer. I have a dog that likes to howl in the middle of my meetings, so Crisp completely cancels that out. It's really is remarkable. But aside from that plug, Jake, can you talk to me a little bit about how you think about it? Because you've got to run two different motions at the same time.
I mean, I think you're right to say Crisp is uniquely diversified in our revenue streams with PLG, B2B, and the enterprise motion. We also have an SDK and embed motion as well. And marketing as a shared service has to be thinking about all of those. So I'll go back to the foundation where I think the charter for marketing at this stage in particular has to be revenue and has to be growth. That is the name of the game. And so for all of those lines of business for Crisp, that's where I start. Where are the areas, even across the three business lines is the way we think about them, where I should be allocating marketing dollars to fuel and funnel growth. And they're very different motions. I agree with Ron that SDR as a channel should really be something at this stage that at least you're considering as a core marketing function, because that channel is so important, especially on the B2B side of the business. It's not as true, obviously, on the PLG side of the business. And so the dynamics of these different go-to-markets look a lot differently. And what the implication of that is that the statement about aligning to and I'll look up Kellogg's blog, but I hadn't read it yet. Thank you. Aligning to the CEO versus or the CRO, rather, head of sales versus the CEO. In this case, it has to be both, right? Because the CEO and the founding team, along with the board, are making tough strategic decisions about allocation across these three business lines, in addition to the B2B business line, the one of the three, where I have to be highly aligned to sales and success and the rest of the go-to-market teams in order for that particular part of the business to find growth and to ultimately hit our revenue goals. I'll also just plus one to what the group has already said here. The revenue accountability and alignment of those things on the B2B side in particular is paramount. I don't think you'll ever avoid friction and tension, but the key distinction is it should be a healthy friction and a healthy tension. You need tension in this system. I think for a lot of reasons, that's the way that you push yourself over the boundaries of growth. And so, that collaboration should bring some friction and tension into it. You should be talking about quota, and you should be talking about quota coverage, and you should be talking about all the things along the revenue engine that aren't necessarily under the control of marketing in the traditional sense, but it has to be a collaborative effort. And so, yeah, it's been fun for me to kind of get to have the variety of marketing application across these business lines of Crisp. But it does take, again, I'll go back to the applied skill set of marketing. It's so critically important in general, even if you're just one of these business lines from industry to industry, market to market, but in particular with this dynamic where you might have a B2B, B2C, a B2C model, it really starts to make the role of marketing fairly dynamic at the strategic level. And then there's a lot of functional capabilities, I'll call them centers of excellence, that you have to really build those out to share across the business lines as well. So you have a little bit of both.
I couldn't agree more on that topic. And, next we were going to dive into account-based marketing, which is one of my favorite subjects. And just because we're not going to get in, I'm probably going to punt it. And as we were talking about before, I think we could do a whole hour-long session on it because it is something that I'm super passionate about. And we just won't do it justice. For those that don't know, account-based marketing, omni-channel approach, especially for selling an enterprise where you are doing just about all these different, it's an orchestrated approach where you're going after one particular customer in a variety of different ways. But it's hard to rush through this, and I want to get to the corporate marketing piece, so we'll save that for another day. And so jumping into corporate marketing, in the last 9 minutes here. So corporate marketing, it's all about building and promoting the brand's identity. So brand development, marketing, market positioning, content strategy, PR events. A lot of these have overlap with demand. Like I'm more of a demand marketer than I am a corporate marketer. So a lot of times when I did it, I did a lot of events, but a lot of the events all had pipeline goals for me. It wasn't just a big, overall brand goal, especially at the early stage. But corporate marketing is incredibly important as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about this. So what are the strategies an early stage marketer can employ to effectively create and establish a new product in a category? And Joe, I'll put this to you because I know as you go later, often corporate marketing matters more and more. And so why don't you touch on that subject?
Yeah, I would take a slightly different approach and say, depending on the stage of your position in a category, whether you're trying to disrupt an existing category, take Zoom, for example, in web conferencing, right? They've done an amazing job, but they were, not the first to market there. Or if you're brand new and you're trying to forge something new, corporate marketing can play a very important part early on. I would just suggest that founder considers parsing out the different pieces of it. Support Logic is doing something that no one else was doing before. We sell to a new persona, heads of support. They didn't have a budget. They weren't buying anything before. We had to train them on how to buy. So building out that category, and category development is a whole different topic we could spend another couple hours on, and I'm very passionate about that. I've had the privilege of being in several category defining companies, and we liken it to more of building a movement, right? This is activating an audience in a movement. And then what's critical at that stage is the narrative, 100%. How do you tell the story? And the story isn't about, I think this is another lesson for founders. The story is never about what does your product do, especially technical founders. They love to, they're proud of the product that they've built, especially if they've found early product market fit and there's established value. They go on about the product, but the narrative needs to broaden the aperture and look at what is the disruptive event that's happening in the world, right? A shift to subscriptions, generative AI disrupting everyone's business. What is that background event that's happening that's causing the need and the opportunity for something that you do? And you need to fit that story in, because in early stage categories, the biggest competition is doing nothing, status quo. So you have to sell the why change message before you sell the why my product. And that's why that narrative is so important. And the positioning and the brand, how do you, accompany that narrative with a look and feel, a website, the other corporate assets. How are you showing up at events? Events, as you said, and could be part of demand gen. We launched 2 years ago a category defining event, SX Live, which is all about helping support leaders transform the work they do, supported by our products. So these are all the elements. And I would say you have to invest early, but it doesn't, sometimes when you say the word or the phrase corporate marketing, it sounds like a big company marketing job. And so I think it's important to pull out the different pieces and decide what's important to apply to your business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And just in the next few minutes, Jake, I'll kind of pass it to you. When you think about an early stage marketer, how do you determine if there's potential demand or product market fit for a new category that's being created?
Well, I mean, now we have the luxury of picking up a lot of digital signals. So I think there's always intuition, but Google Trends tells us a lot. And turns out in startup land, you can have a great team, you can have a great product, and those are the things you typically look for as an investor. But the one variable that you can't always determine with as much accuracy is market timing. And Joe kind of touched on that. And it turns out that's one of the most important variables. So whether you call it the zeitgeist or the thing that's happening that you think is going to gain more mindshare and prominence, it really, this corporate marketing job and the communication of the narrative and the brand, from my standpoint, you're really looking to connect to those, what I call like the jet streams. What are the big things that are happening that you can hitch your wagon to? And the trick is you got to hitch the wagon to those jet streams while also extending. So it's like the connect and extend. And I think Joe is spot on with kind of the distinction between a narrative that allows you to disrupt and displace versus one that's a connect and extend. There's a whole conversation there that we get involved with, but at the end of the day, I think the corporate marketing job is really trying to figure out, how do I attach to the mind share of my audience in the current day, right? That's kind of the core to it.
So in the interest of time, we got 3 minutes. Instead of, I'll make sure everyone who wants to follow what these guys are doing, as well as the companies, we'll have a blog post up in the next week. But I want to just go around quickly. What's one thing that you're proud of that you've done at your current company that we can point people to? Joe, I might even answer for you and just say the event that you guys have produced is really awesome. So in a minute, can you talk a little bit about that and where people can learn more?
Yeah, that would be the number one thing I would mention. So SX, which stands for Support Experience. This is the movement that Support Logic has been spearheading, started this live event series. It really started in COVID when we knew we couldn't do it face-to-face, even though we know our personas, the heads of support, love face-to-face interaction. So we did this virtual event. We were expecting a few hundred people. We had roughly 1,500 people engage globally. And so we doubled down on that this year. And we've also, one of the things we've done is we've translated all of that content into what we call an owned media strategy. So we just launched a new platform. You can check it out on library.sxlive.com. And it's all about sharing this content that helps our buyer personas and their teams do their job better and be curious and learn. And this builds an engaged and loyal audience over time that eventually becomes our buyers. So that's what we've been very much focused on and we're proud of today.
Super cool. Ron, I'll pass it to you. I know you guys are the earliest stage of the group, but you guys have put together some really cool campaigns already. So what can we point people to?
Yeah, I think to focus on things that you can find online, I think we just did our own first big virtual event called Lean AppSec. It's on our website. It's endrolabs.com/leanappsec. We were excited because we got some really top-notch speakers to be on, and we had hundreds of people join in. The thing that I'm proud of most is probably that we already have multiple opportunities and conversations going as a direct result of that event, which at this stage, you do want to make the longer term investments in brand, which I very, very much believe in and very passionate about and can talk about. But you also need to balance that with very specifically what is going to help me drive revenue before the end of the year, right? So very, very proud of the work that the team has been doing on that event and the collaboration between, the sales team, the marketing team, everybody that spoke on it. Yeah, that was one of the best campaigns I think I had the pleasure of taking part of.
Very cool. Jake, how about yourself?
Yeah, and as you already kind of touched on, Crisp historically has been kind of known as the AI-powered noise canceling app. And part of my remit and challenge coming in as a new CMO was, how do we define ourselves given the fact that we're now going beyond just noise cancellation, voice fidelity, into what we've now introduced with AI Meeting Assistant, which does automated transcriptions of meetings unobtrusively and uses generative AI to then summarize the meeting. And we're also introducing real-time accent localization, which converts a, let's say, Indian English accent into an American English accent for better comprehension. And so, hey, what are we? Going back to the category creation, what's the jet stream? And of course, the AI is a big part of that. I'm calling what we do now as voice productivity or voice productivity AI. And so we have an opportunity to attach to those jet streams while extending and building the category. That's going to be a multi-quarter, multi-year effort. And the other thing I'd add to that is moving from a strictly inbound motion to an outbound motion. And so all of the who are attractive customers, who has the best value prop that we have to offer. And I brought in the SDR team, which wasn't part of my original charter, but quickly became apparent that it needed to be. And we've made tremendous progress. Last quarter, we generated the majority of our pipeline from that outbound motion. So those would be two of the proud accomplishments that I think we've just embarked on the journey, but have made good progress on.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, the three of you, for joining today. This was a great conversation, and I think we're already ready to schedule a couple more based off some of the topics we didn't even get to today. So thank you all for joining, and thanks all for listening, and have a great day.